Let's get started. I'm about to take all of these inverters and batteries out of here, and then I'm gonna redo the whole room. It's gonna be awesome. I decided to go with Unistrut instead of anchoring directly to the wall, and I'm really glad that I did this. So first we started by hanging our vertical pieces, and then we started measuring for the horizontal pieces. The Unistrut gave me a lot more flexibility, and it made it so that if I, for some reason, hung something in the wrong place the first time, I could easily make some adjustments and then everything could be spot on. Here we are hanging two pieces horizontally for the batteries, and it's important to note that the batteries do not actually hang their weight on the wall. This is simply to keep them from tipping over and hold everything in place. I used a mixture of the 3/8 and the 1/4 inch nuts for the Unistrut, basically just depending on what would fit. For this top battery piece, I definitely used the 3/8 because I just wanted to make sure that it was a bit more secure. And for the inverters, the only thing that would fit was the 1/4 inch, so I went with that. So here we are the night before, and I've got this battery being charged off with the Sun Gold power unit, and then this battery here, it's being topped off, and it is using the charge inverter right here, which I have just plugged into this wall outlet. And I cannot get the battery communications, the SoC, to actually communicate. I've tried a whole bunch of different Ethernet cables, and it doesn't seem to work between this guy and this guy. And I've heard other people say their SoC doesn't work, but I've never had an issue with any of my Life Power 4 batteries. But apparently these don't communicate. So I'm gonna get these two topped off tonight, and then tomorrow morning I'll plug this one in and we'll get it topped off, and then we'll install it on the wall. So you're gonna take off these 4 screws on the back plate, and that allows it to drop. Now it literally will drop, so I'm gonna hold it here while he pulls out that last one. And then, like I said, it drops. So you got your back plate, and this is going to go onto the wall. And check in your manual, but it's gonna tell you a couple of sizes. Right here you see these holes are gonna be 26 and let's call it 3/4 inches above the ground. So we've already got our rail right here, 26 3/4 to the center. And then we've got about 10 3/16 or so between here, because that's the difference between this hole and this hole. And we're gonna put it up here like this, screw it in, and we're gonna be 7 inches apart over here on that side. When working with the Unistrut, we went ahead and put 3/8 bolts right here. Ran out of 3/8, we've got 1/4 inch there, but I'm actually just using 1/4 right here. Got Mitch lining this stuff out. So what we'll do is we'll take this, it's got the beveled edge. So we're gonna get it in here and rotate it clockwise, not counterclockwise. Do the same thing on this end. I'm gonna get all 4 of these in. You could put 6 of them in here for these center holes. Go ahead and do that. I'm not gonna do it because I don't have enough. And this isn't carrying the weight of the battery. It's simply keeping the battery from falling off. So we got that, then we've got our washers. We got a big flat washer, 1/4 inch flat washer, 1/4 inch lock washer. So we've got the second battery in place. Now, before I move on, I'm gonna go ahead and adjust it. The front foot is on the ground, the back foot is not. So I'm gonna take this top nut and I'm gonna loosen it like this. That's the lock. And then the bottom one, I'm gonna spin until that foot makes contact with the ground. I'm gonna tighten a couple of turns. This way, the unit is being supported by the floor and not hanging on the wall. And then I can tighten this back up and lock it in place, although I don't think it's going to spin out anytime soon. Whoa, let me see that. Check it out. Nice.
Can the video see the work that I'm doing?
I like that. No, which is why I was doing a little. Oh. I mean, it can. So 7 1/4. I don't know if you can slide way over. This is the beauty of having this railing. Don't tighten these down too much because you will bend the back frame. Ask me how I know. Walk it in ever so slightly.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. That wasn't too terribly difficult.
No, not bad at all. Next, I built the conduit box on top of that center battery, and then I started to figure out what the height was for the horizontal unistrut so that the 6000 XP could fit right above the box. I don't want to have to use conduit to attach the box to the inverter, so I want them to be as close as possible, but this caused a little bit of a problem, and we will get to that in a second. Either way, I went ahead and I installed the 2 right inverters in boxes just to make sure that I knew exactly what I was going to be telling you in this video, and then we're going to walk through doing the one on the left together. And I must say, I absolutely love my boys coming out to work with me in the shop. They enjoy it, I enjoy it, and there's no greater joy as a father than to be able to teach your sons something and allow them to come along and help you out. Buddy was doing a great job here. He built these boxes and has been really helpful through this whole process. I decided to go with Unistrut because it allows me to have a more modular design and slide things around and push them and pull them. And because I didn't know exactly how I wanted this to be set up from the start, it allowed for some more flexibility. And I'm glad I went with it, but it's optional. It did cost about $20 a stick here, and we've got 5. And of course, there's some additional things that you've got to purchase with the Unistrut, all the hardware that are the nuts and the bolts and all of that stuff to go along with it. For me though, I think it was worth it, and I'm probably going to build out some of my testing areas with the Unistrut as well, just because it's so easy to work with. You might be thinking, Eric, why are you building out this entire new system with 6000 XPs when you have newer inverters on the market? Well, I think that 6000 XP is still in a sweet spot for price to power and feature set for off-grid, and it is still one of the top selling inverters on the market. And so because of that, I wanted to create another build video with this setup. If you've seen one of my previous builds, I built it with the server rack style, but now we're going with the wall mount. And I think this is a super clean, very simple, and elegant design that anybody can do, and I'm excited about it. If I were to do it over again, I would actually change things up just a bit. I would probably try to put the Unistrut between each of the inverters. And the reason for that is because you can't adjust this up and down whenever the inverter is right in front of it. And so it would have been great to be able to loosen up the bolt, push it up a little bit, and adjust this inverter height without having to set it up here, take it down, set it up, take it down, keep trying. I had to do a lot of trial and error. I kept measuring it, but it's not as precise as you would think it would be, just because there is play in the way that the Unistrut works. So I'm going to give you measurements that ended up working perfectly for me so that you don't have to try to guess. Now, this is only going to work if you're working with the Unistrut, the wall mount, the conduit box, and the 6000 XP. If you're using a different system, then of course you're going to need to figure out your measurements on your own. And when I give you the measurements, what I'm going to give you is the top of the Unistrut. So from the ground, I'm going to give you to the top of this one, to the top of this one, and so on and so forth. So from the ground, we are 17 3/8, 27.5 on the second, 45 13/16, and 72 1/4. hopefully that's going to help someone out and save them a lot of time that I spent having to mess with this myself. I'm going to have an entire list of all of the products that I used here, from just the conduit in between the conduit boxes, the boxes themselves. I'm going to have all of the parts and pieces you're going to need, from the lugs to the extra bolts and nuts, and everything is going to be in one giant spreadsheet so that you can pick them up. I got all my stuff at Lowe's, with exception to the equipment, which I got from Signature Solar. I'm going to have some of this stuff right here in the video that you can just shop right here. You can shop the products and order it directly from YouTube, which is a really cool new feature. If you are going to shop for any of this stuff, I really would appreciate if you'd use my links. That'll help me out, and I greatly appreciate that. There are definitely parts of this entire process you're going to have 2 people for, unless you have some sort of mechanical advantage, and I'm going to leave that up to you. But I use the team lift method for a lot of this project, and I recommend that as well. And even then, these batteries are ridiculously heavy. So make sure that you are well aware that these batteries down here weigh like 300 and something pounds. They're super heavy, and it's vital that you are using all the safety precautions to make sure you don't have this thing fall over on you, because that would be devastating. So now you've got the batteries in place, and you've got your Unistrut set right above the batteries so that you can hang your inverter and you can put your box on top of the battery. The big issue is you've got to connect the battery down here on this bottom piece of Unistrut, or secure it to the wall. And then you've got to put the box on top of the battery and underneath the inverter. But in order to get the box in, you have to have the inverter out of the way, because you have to get over these connections here. And so you run into this like chicken and the egg thing where you can't have one in without the other. So the solution that I came up with was essentially put the inverter on the wall, and once it's on, then you build the box underneath the inverter. And that's where having the Unistrut really saved my day, because if I had simply drilled the holes where I thought the inverter was supposed to go, then I wouldn't have been able, it would have been in the wrong spot, because I had to move it multiple times based on the box build and all of that. So the Unistrut ended up being a really great feature. And I'm recording this at night, and there are coyotes howling and my dogs are going nuts. So sorry if you can hear them in the background. So I've got a 1/4-20 by 1 inch with a flat washer and a lock washer. And that's what I'm going to screw in up here into these nuts once we hang the inverter on the wall. Let me get the inverter. If you're here and you're this far in, it's because you're into off-grid or DIY solar stuff. And so I wanted to make sure you're aware that every single Thursday night at 8 Eastern time, myself, Rodney Hunt, and Adam DeLay go live, and for at least an hour, we answer questions, we bring on guests, we bring you some of the latest news, and we just talk about all things off-grid solar or grid-connected solar or whatever it might be. But we love this type of thing, and we talk about it all the time. So join us at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and hopefully we'll see you this week. So this is where having that extra hand or this little basket comes in handy. I'm going to go ahead and just temporarily get it finger tight. There's one. At that point, I feel pretty confident. And then let's get the second on here. Next, I want to make sure that we are centered up on the battery. So I've got it just finger tight up here with these 2 nuts and bolts. And I'm going to put this straight edge along the battery. And when I do that, you can see I've got about a 3/4 inch gap on this side. And I do it down here. I'm actually touching on this side. So I need to move over by whatever, 3/8, a little bit. Try to split the difference and get it back. So I'm going to move it over ever so slightly. So I'm gonna try this out again. And that looks like I got about a 1/4 inch to an 1/8 inch. I need to move over another, I mean, I'm really splitting hairs here, but just a smidge. That's probably gonna do it. And then at this point, I can line it up along this edge and see where it is on the battery. And that's pretty much right on. It's slightly off. I'm gonna grab my driver, 11mm socket. And I'm still not getting it too tight. One thing you'll notice is when I tighten this down, this lip right here is actually going to slide up into the channel. So you're actually almost recessing this whole L-shaped bracket back into the Unistrut a little bit. Now, if you're mounting this to the wall, you're just gonna drill your holes and then you're gonna just screw it on in. And I'm looking down here and I can see it's just barely hanging on and it's flush all along the side of the inverter. I'm gonna switch it around and look at this side. I'm gonna set this down here and then flush it up on the inverter. And you can see it's still just barely hanging on again. So I'm nice and where I need to be. I like that. Now that we have it centered up on the battery and we've got it kind of hand tied up there, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this guy. You can see it comes out just fine. Toss it down. Now I've got 2 more screws right here that I need to put into these nuts, or bolts rather, into the nuts. See, that one's already lined up pretty good. I'll just slide this guy over and then get them snugged up. I'm not really worried about these being too tight. I just want them to make sure that the inverter doesn't, you know, jiggle like this. And then we're gonna build the box underneath it. I don't know what the torque specs are on these. I get them going with the impact driver and then I come back later and tighten them up with a wrench just so I can get a feel for it. But like I said earlier, I'm really not trying to get this thing crazy torque down. I just want to make sure this lock washer is flat. All right, so now we're gonna build out the box that's gonna go on here, the conduit box. And this is gonna be fairly straightforward. I'm sure there are many ways you can do this, but this, after building 2 of them already, this is the almost only way that I could figure out how to do it. You're gonna have 2 end plates on either side, right and left. This one has the right stamp on it, this one has the left stamp. And the way that you know where it's gonna go is the side that does not have this sticking out, I guess, L-shaped bracket or bend to it, the side that's just flat, that is gonna be down. So the right is gonna be over here on the right, left is gonna be over on the left. And the way that I'm doing this, and you can do it however you want because there's lots of options, got all these knockouts. I'm doing the lower 2 back knockouts. So I'm gonna knock out this one and I'm gonna knock out this one. They are 2-inch knockouts, and then that allows you to place the 2-inch conduit into those, which we have to do before we install it because of how close these are to each other. So the first thing I'm gonna do, make sure I'm gonna double check I'm on the right, I'm matching up against what I'm doing, and I'm gonna knock out these 2. So I'm gonna put it on something like this that has some give beneath it. I'm gonna take my rubber mallet and I'm going to just knock the mess out of it. Now, if you don't do this and you get it up here on top of the battery, it is a royal pain to try to knock them out without jarring everything loose. So be sure to do this before you get it up there. All right, Now, because that's going to be over here, this one needs to have the mirror side. So I need to get these two knocked out. And then while we're here, we might as well go ahead and install the lock nuts and the conduit things, whatever you call these. So on the right side, I'm going to have it slide through. And these do have a tapered edge to them, so just make sure the teeth are pointing down toward the metal. Get them in there, and then once it grabs, then you can just tighten it up by hand. You can do the same thing on this one. Now that we've got our right side put together, and it's going to be butting up against the left side of the previous box, we're going to place the right side to the bottom plate. Now, we've already taken out all of these screws here, including the ground screw. Now, the right plate is going to go to the right side, and now you've got your front and back of this plate. I've got it sitting on here sideways, just for what we're going to do. We're going to turn it up like this. I'm going to set this over here and screw these guys in. Finger tight so we can adjust this other side. All right, I've got that side in. Now you can see how it's going to sit here. We're going to put the conduit between these two, and then we're going to press it together. And then with any luck, we've got the tolerances set right so that it's going to snug right up to itself, and everything is going to be good. Now, what I haven't figured out yet, I haven't determined whether or not I'm going to take the left side and go ahead and pre-build it out as well, because I've got room to get my screw in here. You know, that's one thing that you don't have on this side. You can't actually get your screwdriver on this side. If you have a stubby, it'll work just fine, but you still have to be able to get all of these pieces together. So I'm going to hold off on putting that one on just for right now, because it does make the entire assembly nice and wobbly. You know, it wants to flex out a lot, and it makes this bow up more. So let's go ahead and get these guys in place. I'm not gluing them. I don't know if NEC requires that, or your local code. For me, I don't see these coming apart any way, shape, or form, and at least until I decide to have them come apart, at which point I don't want them to be glued. So that's my thought process. Now, I'm sure you could actually take these off, put them on there, and then slide it on, and then get the nut on. That would be a good way of doing this as well. I'm going to go ahead and get these seated as tight as possible. And, you know, just because I'm redoing things and I want everything to look nice, I am trying to make sure that my text and everything is not visible. Got that piece in. Now let's slide this one on. If you can think of a better way to do all this, put it in the comments. Let us all know. And of course, there's that last like 1/8 of an inch that it doesn't want to compress. So the last time I did this, I went ahead and grabbed a quick grip like this and compressed it just a little bit, just to try to squeeze out that last bit. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and get the left side on. That's going to go over here. So now you can see that we've got the left side on and the right side on. You can definitely see why we had to put the inverter on first, because you've got to build this back wall after the inverter is up, because these bolts right here you cannot get to them through this big plate. Speaking of that plate, that's the next thing we're going to put on, and then we'll put on the top, and then we'll put on the front. And for the back plate, we're going to use these flat screws here, ones with the lock washers. It's provided in the bag. And you've got these little nubs sticking out the back, the actual bolts, or the screws, the actual screws. You can see them. And those are going to face away from the box toward the wall. So slide this guy in here. Easier with 2 people, as most of this stuff is. One thing that is still yet to be determined, so if you're going to follow along with the build and you've got the exact same thing, make sure that I don't get to the end and say, hey, you know what, you need to knock out 3 more of these things or something like that. I don't expect that to be the case, but it is possible. I will say I'm impressed with the build quality of these units. They are very precise, and I haven't had any misalignments. So the top piece looks like this. We've got some round cutouts, and then we've got this long horizontal cutout. And the horizontal one is what we are going to bust out. Should probably do this on something secure or flat, but this works. All right. So you just simply want to knock this guy out and not hurt yourself in the process. All right, got that knocked out. All right, we've got the top plate. It says top on it. I'm gonna switch that around so it's underneath. Actually, that makes sense anyway because of the screws. So this is simply gonna slide under, and man, you look at that. It is perfect because we got our measurements right. And so this guy just sits right where it needs to sit. It slides right underneath it. Everything is good, life is good. Then we've got 4 screws to put into the top. So once again, we've got these screws with the beveled edge. Don't forget to connect your ground strap. Just like that, all 3 conduit boxes are installed. Next, let's move into setting up the batteries in parallel. Wow, this is a lot of information, so I'm glad you made it this far. Because the video in total was going to be about an hour and a half long, I decided to split it into a few chunks. So if you are looking for any of the parts and pieces, you haven't purchased everything that you need yet, I really would appreciate it if you would use this link right here. It'll take you to the spreadsheet where you can go ahead and pick up everything that you need for your project. The next thing is the next video. So jump on right here and we will see you there as soon as it's posted, if it's not already posted. Thanks a lot.